All right, man, peace. So the first round of the NBA playoffs has been completed, and now the liberal sports media is asking the hypothetical question of who was the MVP of the first round of the playoffs. Now, we know this is just a vehicle for them to try to exalt LeBron James as usual, but in the process of them having this conversation, it will provide us with a proper context that we can judge all the players that are participating in the NBA playoffs. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
LeBreezy, once again, a man amongst boys, putting up 45 points in Game 7 at the Q, sending the Pacers packing. He led the team in points, rebounds, and assists for the series and made history Sunday when he passed Scottie Pippen for the most steals in playoff history. Stephen A. Was LeBron the MVP in round one or what?
Or what? That's the answer. Because no, LeBron James was not the MVP of the first round of the playoffs. The MVP of the first round of the playoffs was Anthony Davis, and it was not particularly close. Many in the mainstream liberal sports media get captivated by LeBron's ability to dominate the stat line, as opposed to dominating on the court where it matters in games and a style of play that results in wins. At the end of the day, you can put up as many gaudy stat numbers and stat lines as you want. If it's not resulting in a high level of probability that you're going to win, what you're doing is not effective. Because if that's the case, when we look back at the 1960s, we have to call Oscar Robertson the best player of the decade. We can't say that Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain were, because Oscar Robertson was the person who was getting all those 30-point triple-doubles. Now, once again, when we look at how the current NBA game is played in the fluid manner that is going to result in championships, we're going to look at the Golden State Warriors. We're going to look at the Boston Celtics. Even though they're undermanned, they still embody that type of play that's going to lead to success. The way that LeBron James plays is archaic, to be quite frank with you. And the only reason that he's so successful is because he's so uber talented. And of course, he is physically dominant over just about every other player in the NBA when you judge his physique as well as his overall skill level. But what he lacks is the ability to plug himself into a real system. And because he refuses to conform to a real system, that's going to stop, it's going to curtail his ability to maximize his opportunities to win championships.
The MVP in round one?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Stop.
Absolutely not. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, the fact of the matter is, listen. Well, listen, I'm sorry. I thought you asked the question and then let me answer as opposed to answering it now. Is that what you want to do? Yeah, I can step aside now. Listen.
Thank you, sir. It's about time you put your foot down with this broad, with bootleg Kim Kardashian over here.
Listen.
Oh, no, we need you for this one, especially.
LeBron James was absolutely sensational yesterday. There's no question about that. He was sensational in Game 5. We know this. He's been sensational in their wins.
He's been sensational for his entire career, but that's not the question. The question is, who played the best in round one? And it was Anthony Davis. Why is that? Because he led his team to a sweep. Many will say, well, look, Anthony Davis had help. He had Drew Holiday. Anthony Davis allows his teammates to help him. LeBron James does not allow his teammates to help him. Why is that? Because they all have to play in preconceived roles whenever they play with him. Whoever LeBron James's four-man is going to have to be a stretch four, because LeBron does not know how to play with someone who's not a stretch four. Whoever his point guard is must be able to make wide-open jump shots, because LeBron is not going to allow that point guard to bring the ball up and run the offense. These are things that many people don't understand. They don't see because they're mesmerized by how wonderful and overall individual talent LeBron James is. And yes, he is a great player, but that does not mean that his style of play is going to be conducive to being the most proficient in winning games.
In some of their losses, not so much. Now, it's obviously not his fault. The team is weak, and we get all of that, and we know that he's the greatest player in the world. And you're asking the question from the standpoint, but let's make sure that the audience knows what you're asking.
Yes.
Was he the MVP in the first round?
Yes.
Meaning the first round, East and West. Didn't the Pelicans sweep the Blazers in the first round?
Thank you, sir.
4-0. Was not Anthony Davis on a surreal level in the first round? Sure. So it's not about decrying or or denigrating anything that LeBron James did. Did you see LeBron James with the bloody eye Friday? Did you see the Indiana Pacers romp the Cleveland Cavaliers? Did you see the other guys? It wasn't his fault. The other guys refused to show up. Haven't we lamented time and time again throughout this series as it was an up and down roller coaster ride, what we anticipated and expected to see from the team and what we did not get? LeBron James obviously was sensational in Game 7. He was sensational in Game 5. He was sensational a few games before that. We get it. There were a couple of games where the team was so bad and the Pacers were playing lights out that obviously LeBron James wasn't the story that particular game. Anthony Davis in the first round was out of this world. Now, Drew Holiday helped, but Anthony Davis was on another level.
And beyond that, Drew Holiday was put in the position where he was allowed to help, as was Rajon Rondo. LeBron James' teammates are not put in the position where they're allowed to help, because every Cleveland Cavalier game is a LeBron James production. Bottom line. They're not allowed to help. And the proof of that is that when LeBron went out with his mysterious cramping, what did we see? We saw Kevin Love rise to the occasion. We saw Kyle Korver rise to the occasion. We saw Jordan Clarkson rise to the occasion. These are NBA basketball players. They need to be given a chance. We just cannot conform to the age-old narrative of LeBron does not have any help. You're not going to tell me that you traded away all that talent at the All-Star break, or at the trading deadline, I should say, and you got back nothing. When those trades were made, everyone almost uniformly stated that the players that the Cleveland Cavaliers were getting back were going to be more conducive to playing in the LeBron James system. So if they're not playing well, we have to blame LeBron.
So to me, the MVP for the first round was Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis was amazing. But LeBron James is doing a Jordan to the league in the sense that there's really no one else you can talk about with LeBron. It is.
No, sir, I don't think so. LeBron James is the best player of this era, but no, he's not the Michael Jordan of this era. There was no debate in Michael Jordan's day of whether or not he was the best player in the league. There is debate today. In this modern day time, yes, you can debate LeBron versus Kevin Durant. Yes, you can debate LeBron versus Steph Curry. In regards to impact, you absolutely can.
It is ridiculous to compare other players to LeBron still, including KD, including at this moment, AD. Davis was great, but you brought up Drew Holiday. Stephen A. Drew Holiday shut down Damian Lillard and gave him 41 on the other end.
Yes, because Anthony Davis and the Troutmouth coach put Drew Holiday in the position to be successful. That's what great coaches do. Tyronn Lue is a coordinator. He's an assistant coach masking as a head coach.
41. Rondo was brilliant all series.
Okay.
Mirotic got in on the action, dropped like, what was it, 31 one of those games?
31 game. Yeah.
31 of the 30. 30 in one game, right. And how many times someone on the Cavs scored 20?
That's interesting. How many times were they given the opportunity to score 20? We've seen Rodney Hood, while he was on the Utah Jazz, have breakout games. We've seen Jordan Clarkson have breakout games when he's with the LA Lakers. Are they getting the opportunities? Are they being put in positions where they know that they can be successful? Are they being given the ball where they like it? Those are questions that you have to ask. You can't just always look at the stat sheet.
Other than LeBron James, 0 times. He didn't have another guy contribute 20 points at any.
This is why fanboys and fangirls should not talk about anything, including sports, because they cannot make objective observances.
It's unbelievable. This Cavs team, I've been trying to tell people, especially now with Kevin Love with the torn ligaments in his left thumb, this Cavs team is talent-wise much more similar to the 07 team that LeBron dragged kicking and screaming to the finals.
I agree. And it's going to put LeBron in the position where he has excuses should it not work. Not because his current roster is equivalent to that 2007 roster talent-wise, because I think that they have more talent now. But there is a low enough amount of name recognition with the players that are currently on the Cleveland Cavalier roster that LeBron can make the excuse that he did not have enough help. Because, no, I do not believe that the 2018 Cleveland Cavaliers are on par with the 2007 Cleveland Cavaliers when it comes to overall talent. I don't think that 07 team had a player as dynamic as a Larry Nance Jr., or Jordan Clarkson, a Jeff Green, so on and so forth. A Kevin Love, a J.R. Smith, they did not have players of that ability on that team. But this current roster has enough guys with low enough name recognition and also enough dirt on their name, because we all know that Kevin Love is known for not coming up big in the clutch. We all know that J.R. Smith, even though he's overall talented, he's also known as being a flameout. That provides LeBron James with the cover that he needs, so that when he does leave Cleveland, he can make that excuse.
Than any good team he's been on since. Much more similar. And LeBron papers over a lot of those, deficiencies. But Stephen A., he just played 41 minutes a game on a team that without him might be in the lottery if you took an injured Kevin Love with this team.
That would be interesting to see if you took LeBron James off this roster and you gave all the other players a chance to do what they do best with Kevin Love, as well as with J.R. Smith. Could they make the playoffs? Very interesting. I mean, first off, in the preseason, they would have to learn how to play in an actual offense, because they don't play in an actual offense right now. They play in the LeBron James system.
41 minutes a game. Gave him 34, 10, and 8 on average, and had basically negative contributions from players who were supposed to be additions to the team at the trade deadline. Jordan Clarkson and a couple of others. This was a heroic one-man performance on...
This is what you have to ask yourself if you're an NBA free agent. Is it worth it playing with a 34-year-old LeBron James, or soon to be 34 years old, when you know that you're not going to get any of the credit, and when you know that he's more concerned about bolstering his legacy in the last 4 or 5 years of his career than he is in being a good teammate on the court? That's a question that you must ask yourself if you're Mr. Paul George or whoever else may be planning on teaming up with LeBron James. Now, if KD were to go to the LA Lakers and team up with LeBron, as I've stated, it could be a very slight possibility. It would be interesting to see their dynamic. What type of synergy do they have between each other? Because I do believe that Kevin Durant's probably the only other player in the NBA that LeBron James will recognize as being on his level.
On a team that really shouldn't be in the playoffs if not for him, against a good Indiana team. Yes, they were a little green. Yes, they didn't have home court. Those things contributed. But LeBron James, this is one of those LeBron James series that we're going to look back on and say he dragged that group of guys.
Sure.
Past Indiana in the first round.
Well, once again, y'all are convoluting the argument. Listen, nobody's trying to knock LeBron James. He's the greatest player on the planet. He's the best in the world. The question directly was about the MVP of the first round. I recall game 1 when the Indiana Pacers beat them by 18 points. LeBron James didn't look that great that day. I recall Friday when they lost by 30 plus. LeBron James didn't look great that day. All I'm saying is the first round, even though it's not his fault because he's had to drag the team, the bottom line is we're comparing it to other performances we've watched. Drew Holiday and Meredith and these boys, it doesn't take away from what we saw from Anthony Davis. You don't get to make that argument right now when you were raving about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been exceptional.
Absolutely. And that is oftentimes what LeBron James super fans will try to claim. They'll go to the help argument, which really is nonsensical because quote-unquote help is based off of the speculation that you can evaluate how talented a player is based off of what his role is on the team. In order for you to know the role, you have to know the system. So LeBron James, when he's judged in juxtaposition to every other player just about in NBA history, is always going to come out on top in that type of a conversation because the offense that's utilized in the LeBron James system is built to only allow him to shine. So of course a Scottie Pippen with Michael Jordan is going to look like an extravagant amount of help over any other player than LeBron James has ever played with, including D Wade, because Scottie Pippen was allowed to do more in the Chicago Bulls offense than even D Wade was, who was able to get his 25 a game in the first year that LeBron played with D Wade on that 2010-2011 Miami Heat squad. But you saw what happened. LeBron flamed out in the finals because once he was not allowed to do whatever he wanted, once he was not allowed to play in his system, he had a malfunction. He had a technical issue.
Anthony Davis has been out of this world in the first round. Those first 4 games against the Portland Trail Blazers, Anthony Davis was nothing short of sensational. It doesn't mean that the other guys did not produce. It doesn't mean that he had an inferior team compared to the Cavs. I get all of that. New Orleans looked better in the first round than Cleveland has. LeBron James dragged them to the second round. I totally get it. But Anthony Davis, how he performed in that first round series against Portland was nothing short of sensational.
I'll tell you what.
And beyond that, what people are forgetting is that once again, the Cleveland Cavaliers had home court in that first round matchup against the Indiana Pacers. So despite the mythologizing and the lionizing that the liberal sports media is doing right now for LeBron James, this series was not even supposed to go 7 games if you look at the odds. The Cleveland Cavaliers were supposed to win this series in 5 games. The real debate is, why was this series so close in the first place, especially with Victor Oladipo playing as poorly as he did in the middle part of this series? The Cavaliers were supposed to win this series in 5 games. They were the better team on paper, according to the standings. When we look at the New Orleans Pelicans, they did not even have home court against the Portland Trail Blazers. They went into Portland in the first 2 games, smoked them, and then finished them off in New Orleans. It's not even close.
Of course it was. See, we're both saying they're both great, but the question is who was better. That's what this sports is about.
The first round.
Victory, the agony
in the first round. Let's not leave that out.
First round.
That's all we're talking about.
First round.
The first round.
Okay, here's why it matters.
And LeBron James, that was a game 7, right? Wasn't that game 7 yesterday?
45 points.
I'm sorry, when did the Pelicans finish off the Blazers? I mean, could it be that we forgot because they could finish them off a month ago?
Here's why the help is significant. Notice how much different the Pelicans looked against the Warriors. I'm just talking about the first round, but I'm using the Warriors game 1 as an example of why who you play and what help you have makes a difference on how your team does, of course.
Well, that's a very difficult argument to make for the simple fact that we saw the Cleveland Cavaliers lose in 5 games to the Warriors last season. So what we know is that the Warriors are an entirely different animal, the way that they game plan, the way that they're coached, the way that their players think out there on the basketball court. You can't use them as the standard or the barometer for who's the better player based off of whose team performs better against the Warriors. We have to judge according to how they performed in their first round matchup. So that's a red herring by Mr. Max Kellerman, but I'm not surprised.
Even how you look. Anthony Davis, when Rondo can't hit those shots from the outside or when they don't respect it, Anthony Davis gets more defensive attention against a better defensive team like the Warriors than he would get against the Trailblazers, right? So it's more difficult for him all of a sudden because he's playing a better team. And because...
Well, it's more difficult because he's playing a better team. It's also more difficult because as a center/power forward, he does not bring the ball up like LeBron James can. That's what ensures that LeBron can get his numbers no matter who he's playing against. We know that the number one reason why LeBron gets his numbers is because he's an all-time great player. But it's never going to be an issue for LeBron in regards to how he's going to get the basketball in his hands, no matter who he plays. He knows that he's going to get the ball because if need be, he can bring the ball up. Anthony Davis is not going to bring the ball up and initiate the offense. So when you're having a conversation where you're comparing 2 players and their level of play, you have to factor in the fact that positionally, it is going to marginalize Anthony Davis to a degree in his ability to receive the basketball against a top-notch defensive team like the Warriors. When the Warriors game plan for LeBron, their plan is just single team him and let him go ham. Do not let his teammates get off. Eventually, LeBron will start to wear down in the third quarter. He'll start to turn the ball over and he will start to make mistakes. There's 2 different players. You have to game plan for them in 2 different ways. You cannot use their performances against the Warriors to establish who had a better first-round performance in this year's playoffs.
Precisely what his teammates do don't help him quite the same way against the Warriors that they did against the Blazers. LeBron James is in Anthony Davis's position now, a worse position than Anthony Davis is against the Warriors every single game.
No, sir, because you're not factoring in the fact that the Warriors have the best defense in the NBA when they want it to be. When they want it to be, they have the best defense in the NBA. So that's just a fabricated argument. It's very baseless to say that LeBron James is in the same scenario as Anthony Davis is against the Warriors. He's in that scenario every game against every team. That's just nonsense.
Against Indiana, every game, he had no help in any of them, really on either side of the floor.
Well, how the hell did he win the series going 1-on-5, Max Kellerman? That's what I'm trying to figure out. He only scored 45 points in the last game, in Game 7. Did the Pacers score 44 points? Where the hell did the Cleveland Cavaliers get that other 60 points from?
So, okay, he has a couple games where his team gets beaten up. The main thing is, can he figure out a way to lead this inferior bunch of guys? Really no starters on the team.
I'm going to blame people like you for why LeBron James gets hate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Please lay it out, because it's very obvious that one of the main reasons why so many people quote-unquote hate on LeBron is because of idiotic liberal sports media members like Max Kellerman who try to create this angelic, this perfect, this halcyonic atmosphere around LeBron James like he can do no wrong.
This is exactly why LeBron James. Listen to what I'm saying now, because of hate. This is exactly what this is going to throw you off. This is exactly, it's because of people like you, Max, that LeBron James gets hate. Here's why. Max Kellerman, the analogy that you just used, that wouldn't have been applicable to LeBron James when he had a team. When he had a D-Wade, when he had a Bosh, when he had a Ray Allen, we were still talking about the greatness of LeBron. But then now, he don't have a team, so he dragged them to the second round.
Thank you, sir.
In other words, no matter what scenario it is, in other words, you will sit up there in an argument that you're making against Anthony Davis right now in favor of LeBron. If it were LeBron in that situation, you'd make it on LeBron's behalf. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yes, because he's a LeBron James superfan. He's a fanboy. That's what fanboys do. No matter what the empirical data states, they're always going to try to eliminate any information, any factoids that don't fit in with their hypothesis, with what they want to be true.
Trying to make LeBron is great. We ain't debating it. I certainly can't hate on the greatest player on the planet, the man.
And beyond that, one of the main reasons why LeBron James gets quote-unquote hate or scrutiny is because he himself is trying to create the condition that he should be considered the greatest player in NBA history, despite the fact that he is flamed out in the NBA Finals. And when we're talking about all-time greats, the number one evaluator is always going to be, how do you perform in the biggest moments? How do you elevate your teammates in the biggest moments? And if you're 3-5 in the finals and you're going to call yourself the greatest player of all time, without a shadow of a doubt, then we have to start going through the annals of NBA lore and reorganizing the hierarchy of the NBA. Because now we have to put Karl Malone over Michael Jordan too. Because remember, Karl Malone has more rebounds than Michael Jordan in his career. He has more points than Michael Jordan in his career, because NBA finals don't matter anymore, remember? That's what we have to start doing, because according to LeBron James and his fans, only stats matter.
Man is on this, he's on another level. We get all of that. But what we're talking about here is MVP of the first round. Anthony Davis in this postseason of 5 games is averaging 30 and 11.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Okay, this brother has been nothing short of since
34, 10, and 8.
Yeah,
Just
Stephen,
34, 10,
if he was on
and 8.
the Cavs,
which you have conceded.
your thought experiment, if he was on the Cavs, would they still have won?
Excuse me.
If Anthony Davis and LeBron
I think so.
That's more superfan rationalizing. Well, if we switch players, would the effect be the same? Well, if you're going to switch players, you'd have to run an entirely different system, because your offense will be running through Anthony Davis as your center. You would have your point guard and your shooting guard with a lot less stress on them, because they would not be worrying about having to delegate handling the ball to a power forward, which is what LeBron James is at this point in his career, despite the fact that he does not want to accept that. That totally throws off your offense. You pretty much just have to deal with the cards you're dealt when you play with the LeBron James. Right now, at this point in his career, it's very difficult for him to play with anyone else, because his ego is so large and he has such a large database of information to call up because of the great amount of experience that he has in the NBA, that it's difficult for him to delegate authority to anyone else, to trust them. That's why he and Kyrie Irving fell out. So when you talk about trading players, well, if Anthony Davis was on Cleveland and LeBron was on New Orleans, if you put LeBron on New Orleans, that's a totally different squad. You can't even have Rondo out there because LeBron wants to handle the basketball. So what do you do in Rondo? He's not a spot-up shooter. Right? I mean, that's why you can't ask questions like that.
I think when you look at Anthony Davis and what he brings to the table,
You put him on this Cavs?
No, I'm talking about.
That's what I'm asking.
I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about this one game. I think if they win the Game 7 with an Anthony Davis. In other words, here's what I'm saying. Yesterday's game, I think Anthony Davis can do that. I think Anthony Davis can do what we saw from LeBron yesterday,
look.
Sunday. Not overall, not in career-wise or anything, but yesterday, watching that game and what we saw from LeBron.
I love Anthony Davis.
Can we definitively look at Anthony Davis and say he could not have done that?
I love Anthony Davis. I don't think so. The difference is, even though Anthony Davis does have some point guard skills, he was a point guard once upon a time, he is not the primary ball handler. LeBron had to be everything for that team in a way that I don't think Anthony Davis can be, just based on the position he plays, his size, and that sort of thing.
Really?
When you're comparing LeBron to Anthony Davis or anyone else, it's sort of like comparing LeBron to Jordan. This is what LeBron fans say about Michael Jordan, right? Like, do you and I hold the fact that LeBron lost to the Spurs even when he had Wade and Bosh against LeBron? No, unless you're comparing him to a player who is better than him, right? Because
Well, you do have to hold that over LeBron James when you're evaluating his legacy overall, not even just to Michael Jordan, because I don't even think he's on Michael Jordan's level. When you're comparing him to a Larry Bird, to a Magic Johnson, to a Bill Russell, to a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, yes, you do have to hold that over his head. He performed moderately well in that series, but he wasn't great. Yes, he's going to put up his numbers because he's going to have the basketball in his hand so much, but he was terrible in games 3 and 4 in that series. Nowhere to be found. Game 1, he had the cramp. Game 2, they were able to win. Game 3 and 4, he was terrible. We all know how bad he was in the 2011 finals. I mean, look, bottom line is that LeBron James has had about 3 terrible finals. 07, 2011, and 2014 was borderline terrible. For his standards, is terrible because he was not proficient. 2013, he did not play well in those finals until Game 6. Bottom line. Games 1 through 3, he was terrible. In Game 4, when they needed it, D. Wade stepped up and saved his butt out there in San Antonio. D. Wade had about 32, 33 points. LeBron scored a lot of points in garbage time, and the game ended with him at about 30 or 31 points. But he scored a lot of those points in garbage time once D. Wade took the pressure off of him. Game 5, they got blown out. Game 6, he stepped up in the second half. In Game 7, he was great. But no, LeBron James has not been great in the finals, at least not until he came back to Cleveland. That's when he started to have great finals performances. His performance in the 2016 finals was great. 2017 was great statistically. 2016, he was great down the stretch, the last 3 to 4 games of the 2016 finals. 2015, he just had the ball in his hands all the time. He really wasn't even that great in those finals. He didn't shoot but 40%.
Every time Jordan was crewed up, they won the championship. So, you got to go what your eyeballs see. Indiana's a good team. LeBron just took them by Indiana by himself. And this is not the first time we've seen him by himself.
It's amazing to me the narratives that they create for LeBron. LeBron just willed his team to win against the dogged Indiana Pacers, who were actually the team that did not have home court. Cleveland had home court. They were viewed to be the better team coming into the series. When we look back at Michael Jordan's career, how many teams did he beat that were viewed as being better than the Bulls? When you look just at the 1988 and 89 playoffs, almost every team that they beat, they were not supposed to beat. In 88 in the first round, when they beat the Cavaliers in 5 games, that series was close, and the Cavaliers had more talent from top to bottom. In 89, every team that they beat, they were supposed to lose to. They were supposed to lose to the Cavaliers in the first round. They hadn't beaten them the entire regular season. The next round, they beat the New York Knicks. They were supposed to lose to them as well. And in the third round, in the conference finals, they were the only team in the playoffs to even dent the Detroit Pistons. When you look at LeBron, how many series has he won that he was not supposed to win? I mean, just look back at his NBA career. How many series did he win that he was not supposed to win? Where he came into the series and they said, no, they're not supposed to beat this team. Like, you can look back at the 2016 Golden State Warriors, and we know there was about 7 or 8 situations that occurred in the midst of that finals, in the midst of those playoffs, that precipitated them defeating the Warriors. But I mean, people just need to stop comparing him to Jordan. I mean, at least wait for him to get to 5 titles first.
He did it against the Warriors, taking them to a Game 6 by himself. It's unbelievable. When he has help, LeBron is almost unbeatable. When he doesn't have help, you have to be better than good to beat him.
Don't do that, because see, now you're generalizing and you're getting into the career of LeBron James. We're talking first round.
Thank you, sir.
His numbers were better.
LeBron
than
James.
AD's.
LeBron James. Okay, yeah, you can make that argument.
Okay.
That's fine. What I'm saying to you is, when you look at the annihilation that the Pelicans, handed to the Blazers.
Did Rondo have something to do with that?
Well, listen. Yes, he did.
Did Drew Holiday?
Yes, he did.
Did Mirotic?
Yes, let me ask you a question. Is Portland better than Indiana?
In terms of this matchup?
No, I'm saying, I think overall.
Yeah, going in.
Overall, yeah, but I don't know about how.
Going in, I would say a little better. Going into those seasons.
Overall, not only has Kevin Love been hurt, sure. We're looking at LeBron James. Nobody's trying to take away anything, but I'm saying in this series, it was 7 games for a reason. There were a couple of really bad games that the team had collectively. Y'all, the question was about the first round.
Here's the problem.
The Pelicans
All right, you're leaning on the beginning of the series with the Cavs.
Here's the
Well,
problem.
that's the question.
I like the fact that you're limiting it to the first round. It's very clever. But here's
It's not clever. It's the question, you idiot.
That's what the question was.
You gotta keep this moving. Last word.
That's what the question was.
That's what I mean. Last word.
history will record
But we
this
know that.
first round series by LeBron that LeBron James just authored as one of the great all-time postseason performances
Really?
we've ever seen.
He just
This
Nobody's gonna care about no damn first round performance. Give me a fucking break.
was a transcendent
Really?
performance.
Really? Come on.
AD had a great performance on a good team that won in a sweep.
I'm not gonna
LeBron
give you
James
about
just
that.
had an historically
I'm
great
not going to get on
performance.
you.
If the Cleveland Cavaliers were to get to the NBA Finals and win, then people will look back at that first round series and say that's one of the great performances ever. Or even if they were to go deep into the playoffs and lose in a valiant fashion, then they'll probably look back on LeBron James's career and say that was one of the great performances that he had in the first round against the Indiana Pacers. But other than that, no. When people look back at Michael Jordan's career, how many people know off the top of their heads that in the 1988 series against Cleveland in the first round, he averaged over 40 points a game? I mean, he averaged damn near 45 points a game in that first round series. Nobody remembers. Nobody cares because they lost in the second round to the Detroit Pistons.
You about that because here's the bottom line. John Anderson asked me that last night on SportsCenter, and I'll tell you the same thing I said to him.
First round?
First round. It's against the Indiana Pacers. Mad respect, but come on now.
Not mad respect, a little respect. A little less than mad respect.
We have seen great teams that LeBron.
I'll leave you with this. LeBron scored over 3 times as many points in the series as the Cavs' second leading scorer, Kevin Love. How about?
But anyway, that's it on this video. I think that LeBron will be able to get past the Toronto Raptors, but I'm going to go over that in another video. Peace.